What's up, Mr. Jones Tattoo? Wearing the hoodie with the mugshot. Yep, this is a real mugshot. I'm not a criminal. I've been arrested a handful of times. I was a runaway kid. I had a chins report on me. I've had plenty of run-ins with the law. I didn't make this shirt to look like some hardened criminal, but I did go to county jail, and the story is pretty cool. Not cool in the sense I'm glad I got arrested, but for getting arrested for something so stupid, a story came out of it. So I worked in Oregon as a tattoo artist for 1 year at a high-level shop. The artist that owned the shop at the time was like the guy in 2010, 11, 12. He was sought after by Sylvester Stallone. Stallone flew him to LA to tattoo his entire back. I could be a little off with some of these exact details, but you get the gist. So I had the opportunity to go out there to get tattooed. And then I had the opportunity to do a guest spot, go out there, tattoo for a week, come home. And I ended up hitting it off with the head artist of the shop. And after a few visits out there, a guest spot, I had the opportunity to work there. And that wasn't by accident. I didn't think I'd get the opportunity to be a resident artist, but I put my time in to become a noticeable asset, to be asked to be hired. I was driven, I was hungry, I did some crazy things to shine and to stand out. And I'll get in depth about that in a separate video because I want to stick to the mugshot thing. So fast forward, I get hired, I move out to Oregon, I change my life, I sign up for art school, and I'm working in a shop that's like being in art school just because of the artists that were coming through as guest artists and the resident artists that were really into like drawing and painting. So that really changed the trajectory of my tattoo career because I was someone who could kind of draw and sketch, but I was more of a tattooer. And then when I went out there, I was like immersed in like actual art, and that just helped me so much. So I go out there, I go to art school, I tattoo, I'm there for about a year, and I had butted heads with somebody right off the bat who had got hired as a shop manager. And this was years ago. This picture is literally so old, like I don't think I can share all this crap now. So I butted heads with somebody who was a shop manager for like a year, and unfortunately this guy is getting paid like $10 an hour while we're all making much more than that. So I think there was a little bit of resentment right there. His expectations for like getting tipped out and kind of trying to work the room turned me off right away. So we butted heads, and the shop owners and managers, after enough nonsense, were like, listen, you guys need to shut the fuck up and get along, or both of you leave. So we kept quiet after that. And then about a year in, I caught him stealing money. It was $30 out of the till, like the shop drawer. And he took it from another artist that was a guest artist. And that pissed me off because I'm like, if he's stealing from someone he doesn't even really know, he hates me, I hate him, it's clear. He's obviously stolen from me and probably other people. So I freaked out. I, told on him thinking he would get fired. They told him that strike too because he had done something else dumb. So I was pissed, and I quit. And I midnight moved. I went in the shop in the middle of the night and I moved all my stuff because I felt like if I told them I quit, they might just kick me out of the shop instantly and then give him the privilege of packing all my stuff and putting it on the corner in a box. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I packed all my stuff. I midnight moved. They offered me to go back and just work the days he wasn't there. I tried it once. It just wasn't the good vibe. So I started getting my ducks in a row to move back to the East Coast from Oregon, move back here to New Hampshire. And while I was wrapping things up out there for the last few weeks, I had my girlfriend went home. I was there alone. We sold her car. And I really didn't have a lot of connections in the town outside of like a few clients and the people in the shop. So I start hearing talk around this little town that I'm living in Oregon, that this guy's running his mouth about me, which is just stupid. I should have let it go, but He's like saying people my artwork sucks and all this crap. And like, I knew he didn't mean it. And even if he did, who cares? But he had wanted to get tattooed by me at one point. But he's just like getting under my skin with his nonsense. So I was younger then. I had a little bit different outlook on life, and I was a little more fiery. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, pretty much talking shit, was like, fuck you. If you have a problem with me, I'll beat you up before I go home, like we're in 6th grade. And he said, like, bring it on, bitch. Now at the time, I think I was like 24, 25. I think this guy was probably 40. And, I wasn't necessarily afraid of him, but I didn't necessarily know, like, if I would, like, win in a fight. I mean, he probably had 50 pounds on me. He was an older guy. He had, like, the hardcore cholo look with, like, the sunglasses and the flat brim and the Chicano look from head to toe. So this SoCal white dude. And once I sent that text, it was on. So I got all amped up all night. The next morning, I'm, like, banging out push-ups, shadow boxing. So the next morning after that text was sent, I decided to shoot down to the shop and, take care of business. So I put on a wife beater, black tank top. I'm tatted up. I had my head shaved. I had a fresh head tattoo. I put a mouth guard in for boxing and wrapped my hands, and I ran to the shop. No weapon. The only thing I had was like a singular key to like get back in my house. So I show up at the shop before they open at like 9:30 in the morning, and I'm pounding on the front door, and I'm freaking out. I mean, I've worked myself into a complete rage. So I'm out front shadow boxing, punching myself, spit's coming out of my mouth. I've engulfed myself in a rage to like fight this guy. And in my mind, I've created this movie moment, which is so stupid. But I thought like him and some of the other dudes would come out, maybe even some of the females. And I'm like, whoever walks out of this door is getting punched. And my plan was to just throw punches until either my arms fell off or somebody took me down. So as I'm in front of the shop at 9:30 in the morning, enraged, this guy calls the police. Total bitch move. Like, this guy that was talking shit, Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Big and Burly, calls the police. So next thing you know, 2 cops come up behind me. I'm on the ground. Once I realize it's the police, I spit my mouthpiece out and I went limp because I did not want to get tased or maced. And I said something like, I'm unarmed and I'm not an asshole. Like, I know what's going on. Like, just do what you got to do. And the cops are like, what the fuck are you doing? Dude, are you military? Like, what is going on? And I don't want to lie and steal, like, someone's valor, but it was tempting to say I was military because I thought it might get me out of it, but I didn't. So they end up arresting me. I'm like, listen, this is mutual combat. This guy texted me, called me a pussy, told me to come down. I'm here. I'm not a bully. Like, he's bigger than me. He's older than me. Like, this is mutual combat. They didn't see it as that. They arrest me. I'm in the back of a cruiser, cuffed and stuffed. And on the way to what I thought was the police station ended up being a county jail, which is where I got this photo. So when I got to county jail and we're pulling in, I'm like, are we at jail? Are we at a jail? They're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to a police station. They're like, we don't have a PD. We have a public safety office that we work out of, and then we have a county jail. So I'm like, okay, I'll get booked and I'll be out of here for $40 in an hour. They bring me in. They do a light check-in with information, and then they put me in a cell and they throw clothes in, and they're like, change. And I'm like, into what? And they're like, the jumpsuit. And I'm like, right here? So they rip my, I take my clothes off. They check every crevice of your body because you can't bring in any weapons or any drugs. And once I got changed, I was in this holding cell for a bit. And then like a couple got arrested after me. So the female had to get her own holding cell. So they put me in one with other people. And that was a nightmare. Like, there was one dude in there who got arrested, and I ended up sitting on the floor because he was on the bench and he had got arrested for a street fight. And he was like kicking a guy on the ground, and the guy had bit his ankles. So his ankles had all like bloody teeth marks, and the cops tased this dude. And when he fell, he smashed his orbital bone. So his face was all broken, and he had shit his pants when he got tased. So he stunk. So there was a few other characters like him on the bench. So while I'm in there, the husband or boyfriend of the female that took my singular holding cell came in the shared holding cell that I was in. And this dude was like on one. Like, I'm pretty sure he had like tattoos around his throat, and he was just like, where I was in Oregon, there was like white people and Mexicans. So this white dude comes in and he's like screaming racial slurs, dropping the N-bomb, and he's like looking at me, like calling me like the N-bomb. And I'm like, first of all, I'm not a black dude. And second of all, like, I have no issues with you. So he's screaming and yelling at me so much. And he's not in my face. He's like sitting on the bench and I'm sitting on the ground, that the COs came over and started yelling at him. And while they came in to yell at him to pipe down, I'm on the floor and I'm very polite. I go, excuse me, do I get like a phone call or something? And the lady's like, this isn't Law and Order, SVU, you're not on TV. Keep talking, I'll sanction you for 5 more days. And I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck that means, but I don't want it. So she leaves. That guy's still going nuts. And the COs come over to the window, and there was like a drape in front of the window, and they're lifting it up and taunting this guy and just like winding him up more. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we're the ones stuck in here with this dude. So eventually they pull me out of there. They take my jumpsuit off so they can photograph all my tattoos, and they're asking me about like what I'm doing in Oregon and why I'm living there and all this stuff. And then they came out with a sack with like toilet paper, shampoo and shit. And I'm like, am I staying here? They're like, yes. And that's when I was like, oh boy, now I'm not in a good mood. So this photo is like the snapshot of like the crescendo of me being super, super pissed about what just happened. And I'm blaming everybody but myself at the time. So they take the photo and then they walk me down to a tier, and there were 3 tiers, and they told me I've been like polite and not aggressive, so that like we're putting you in the lowest tier with like, the least issues. So they open the door, they send me into general population, and there's 2 rows of tables, and it's like Mexicans and whites. And I don't think these guys are like hardcore Training Day cholo movie characters, but they got the big stashes, and being from the East Coast, you don't really see that here. So it's a little more intimidating because it's new to me. So I went in there, and it was a nightmare. Like, at one point I was trying to trade food for a calling card, and it didn't necessarily almost turn into a fight, but it got kind of aggressive to the point where like I'm trying to get a phone calling card for trading my food, and like I want to use the card first, and it's turning into an issue because they want my food. I don't know if the card's fake or blank. To be honest, I'd never been to county jail, so I had no idea what was going on. And when the COs had brought me into that tier, I very politely asked this other CO, if I get a phone call, but I was hesitant because the other person threatened to sanction me for asking for a phone call. And the guy goes, there's pay phones, but they only call landlines collect. I'm like, I don't know anybody with a landline except the tattoo shop I was just arrested at. He said calling them is third-party harassment. So I'm like, so I have nobody to call. Well, after spending the whole day in jail, later that night, the seal kind of cracked, and I ended up breaking conversation with a few of the dudes. They came over, and they're like, what's your name? And I'm like, Mr. Jones. And I just kind of kept it firm because I didn't want to I just didn't want to look soft in jail, to be honest. And it's political in there. Like, when I got arrested, hours after me, some other dude got arrested and sent in, and he was a white dude. And when they sent him in, he was like a bigger guy, full-grown man. He smelled like ass. And I don't know how I wasn't on the lowest tier, but when he came in, they sent another kid over to tell him to go shower, and he told that kid to go fuck himself. So then they sent 2 more dudes over, so now there's 3 on 1, and they're like, you're either getting in the shower or we're putting you in the shower. So he got up and took a shower, and I'm like, okay, that's how that works. And when I was in there, I didn't shower, I didn't use the bath. I mean, I took a leak, but it's all stainless steel toilets lined up. I didn't eat because I didn't want to have to take a crap. I'm like, I am not sitting on these toilets. So I'm trying to think of other side stories when I was in there. Eventually I started walking laps and doing push-ups because that's one of the things you could do in there. And while walking around, some dude came up to me and he's like, what'd you get arrested for? And I didn't want to tell anybody because like they were telling me why they were in there. They were there for like Grand Theft Auto, meth, robbing stores. And I'm like, I attempted to get in a street fight. It sounded like pretty weak compared to these people that had been in there for, you know, months and months. So I finally broke, and I was like, I'm here for disorderly conduct. And another inmate's like, dude, you can get bailed out like right now. Like, you literally only need like a $40 bail. I'm like, well, I don't have a phone card. I can't call collect to a landline. I tried trading my food and almost turned into a fight. He's like, you can call cell phones collect. Like, the CO's lied to you. It's like rolling on 9 o'clock at night. That's when the phone lines close. So I run over. I'm waiting in line. I finally get my opportunity. I call my ex-girlfriend, at the time a current girlfriend, and it's like, please state your name. And I'm like, it's Tyler, I'm in jail. And the phone cuts out. And I'm like, what the fuck? She put in the wrong credit card information. It had told me that. It's like, we're sorry, person's entered invalid credit card. So I call again, the race is on. I'm trying to get her on the phone before 9. So I finally get her on a call. She's crying, freaking out. She's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast. She has no idea what drama has, you know, transpired since I last spoke to her. I'm like, listen, you got to call somebody. I'm out here. I'm locked up. You can't call anybody from the shop. It's third-party harassment. Like, if there's any friend you know who's not affiliated with the shop, like, please call. The phone ends up cutting out. So I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs, and eventually I got called for bail. And when they call my name for bail, I grab my you know, fish kit of crap and like went to run for the door. And without any like instruction or information, these dudes like stop me, grab my bag, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And they start taking out my full shampoo bottle and my toilet paper roll, and they're putting in the empty ones. I'm like, okay, I'm picking up pretty quick what's going on. And I let them take what they want. I get the empty shit, and I scurry to the door. There was like a yellow box around the door to get out of the tier, and I'm yanking on the door like I'm just ready to go. And the CO comes up and he's like, get the fuck back. I got an escapee. And I'm like, dude, they just called my name. He's like, I didn't call your name. So he clarifies they call my name. And he brings me out, and he's in my face like a drill instructor, like almost spitting on me while he's talking. He's like, the next time you come back, and you will be back, you come to that door, you're a fucking escapee, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm just being so polite. Like, I do not want to be stuck here. So he's like, empty the sack. So I start taking out stuff out of the bag, and I'm putting it like in my arms and like holding it like in my body. And he's like, empty the fucking sack. So I just drop everything and dump it. And he's like, pick it the fuck up. I'm like, dude, you can't win. So he sends me down the hallway, and I'm alone. And when I get to the end of the hallway, it's where they like brought me in. There's a female by herself, like a sheriff. And she's like, what are you doing down here? And she's chirping on her microphone. I got a guy down here on, you know, I have no handcuffs. He's like, he's, you know, walking freely, blah, blah, blah. And I can hear the guy who sent me down there, his walkie-talkie's like echoing. So he comes running, and now they're like yelling at each other. So eventually they gave me like a plastic tote. And in the tote, there was a sleeve. And this picture was in there. And I'm like, oh, I'm fucking taking this thing, whether they like it or not. So I like slipped it out, put it in my pocket, put my street clothes back on. So when they released me, they let me out the back door. And the back door is like to the back of the jail, and there's like super high fences with like barbed wire, but like you're outdoors. When I went out, I'm like, this feels like a setup. Like, they're not walking me out, they're not bringing me out the front. Like, I'm in the back of the jail. So I'm like slowly walking around, and then I get around to the front, and the only car that had a human in it was like a female with her hair up and like reading glasses, and it was a black Impala. Like, it looked like a D-Tech. So I see the car, and I like walk by, and then they back out, and they're like following alongside of me. So I'm like speeding up. I'm like, what the fuck? They're setting me up. The girl's like, Tyler? I'm like, yeah. She's like, I'm here to bail you out. Your girlfriend called me. I'm like, the hell are you doing in a cop car? She's like, it's a rental. My Toyota's in the shop. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, right to the end, you know, just drama. But she ends up driving me home, gave her bail money. I called a lawyer back home that I knew. He told me to get an attorney. He's like, listen, I'm a lawyer. If I have court, I go with an attorney. So I hired a lawyer local to the courthouse. He petitioned the court for me to appear in court by phone. And this dude, you know, Mr. Tough Guy, Paper Dragon, the shit he wrote up in the paperwork about me made me look like I was fucking Jason Statham or Jason Bourne. You know, I'm a boxer, I'm a fighter, I have firearms and weapons, and I'm trained and all this shit. Like, Mr. Tough Guy in my face all year, like, just totally fell apart. So I ended up flying home, and I appeared in court by phone, and everything was dropped. I had like a 1-year good behavior. Basically, it cost me a night in jail, and I think it was almost $2,000 for an attorney, and then the good behavior wasn't really applicable, I don't think, because that was all in Oregon. So yeah, I moved home, and I started my private studio. I hit the ground running, and I never looked back until now, when I pulled the picture out and I decided that I was gonna not really profit, because t-shirts I can't make money off of the way I can a tattoo. If anything, my time costs me money, but I want to share a piece of my story and a piece of my life to kind of let people know, where this picture came from. So I hope you like the story. Thanks for tuning in. Mr. Jones Tattoo. Peace.